So good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to this webinar here organized by the International Seed Federation. And we're going to have a very, very interesting next hour. We'll be talking about digital transformations in agriculture, navigating risks, enhancing resilience, and securing global food supply chains. My name is Rose Souza Riches. I am the International Seed Federation Phytosanitary Affairs Manager. And with us, we have here Edith Laget from OECD. She is one of the people working on the agriculture trade of the OECD, and she was talking to us about all the efforts that OECD is doing on the work of digitalization, e-certs, electronic phytosanitary certification, and some of the other works that the OECD is doing now. I just would like to highlight to everybody that this webinar will be done in the English language, no translations. And we will have times for some question and answers that can be done during the presentation, but also can be done afterwards. So I see that we have a number of people already joining us. So this is going to be a very exciting event. And I'm hoping, Edith, that you can have so many questions to your work, to the presentation that you have. And really, I think this is a fantastic work that you guys are doing on the OECD. And I think that it is great that you come to us with the private sector. So we have an opportunity to engage with you, to be able to exchange all these informations that you have to share with us. So I think this is a fantastic, I commend you guys for all this work that you're doing. I think digitalization is something that we see more and more coming, especially on all the agri-food value chain. It is something that we wanted to see speeding up the processes of when we are moving different commodities across the world. It is also something that I see that will enhance and perhaps create a more seamless process of movement of plants and plant products across all the different countries. And as all the lessons that we learned during the COVID times, that the digitalization really, it was the silver line. It was through some process of some digital tools, a little bit rudimentary at the time, but it was through some digital tools that we managed to have moved the different plant and plant products across the world during such a difficult times with so many very restricted health measures that it was at the time. So I can see that we already have a great number of people coming in. And I think that it is about time that we start with your presentation. You start to tell us about all this fantastic work that OECD is doing, that you are leading from their side. And I will hand it over the floor to you, Edith.
Thank you very much, Rose. Thank you for the very kind introduction. And you are very well placed to kind of advertise our work because you were here in the conversation from the very beginning, and you have seen this work presented already many times. So it's really a pleasure to be here with you and to be invited to talk to you, the seed experts, about this work that we are conducting right now at OECD on SPS electronic certification. So without further ado, let me share my screen and get started. In presentation. All right. So as Rod said, the title of today is Digital Transformation in Agriculture, talking about the risk, resilience, and securing global food supply chain. Securing global food supply chain. So my name is Edith Laget. I work at the OECD in the Trade and Agricultural Directorate. The outline of my presentation for today is the following. First, I'm going to walk you through the role and benefits of having SPS electronic certification and set the scene a bit for why we are doing this kind of work at the OECD. In the second time, I will talk more into the detail of what we do at OECD in terms of digital transformation of agricultural trade. I'm going to introduce you to some of the past work we have been doing and the work in progress and focus on that in the third part of the presentation, which is called Taking Stock of the Exchange of SPS Electronic Certificate. There, I will show you and make some introduction of the different steps and analysis we are conducting under this specific topic of SPS electronic certificate. And finally, in the fourth part, I want you to tease the participants, and on a very specific topic of the usage of the electronically recorded SPS information, and present you what our work in progress there and what we want to achieve with that. So let's get started. The role and benefits of SPS certification. Let's look at the numbers and see how important this means for us. Currently, global agri-food trade represents $1.5 trillion US. It's also essential for the food system, as about a constant share of 20% of the calories that are used for consumption today are actually imported. So trade plays a crucial role in food security for most of the countries. These results are taken from the OECD FAO outlook of last year. Having said that, as trade in agri-food product grows, there are threats that get multiplied along the way. And one of the main pathways for invasive alien species, it's indeed agri-food trade. This is a well-known example that probably everybody is aware of. The pest phylloxera, which was introduced to Europe from Californian one in the 1850s, actually destroyed more than 1 million hectares of vineyard in France. So controlling this trade and making sure it's safe for the environment, for the human, and also for the plants is key and paramount for the agri-food trade system. So what do we have at hand to make sure that we have safe trade? Well, at the WTO, there are the important SPS agreements. So to make agri-food trade safe, we can use SPS measure. And the WTO agreement on application of sanitary and phytosanitary measure, also known as SPS agreement, states that traded agro-food products should be safe and do not pose risk to human, animal, and plant health. To equip countries in this objective, the WTO SPS agreement allows the use of SPS measures, but those measures should not raise unnecessarily barriers to trade. To prove that this measure is satisfied when products move across border, we use SPS certificates. These are non-custom documents that are issued by the relevant competent authority of the exporting country to attest that consignment complies with the SPS regulation of the importing country. So making sure that we are satisfying the standards of the importing countries. How do we do that? Well, here in this diagram, there is the SPS certification workflow. How does it work from the exporter to the importer? In stage one, a trader from the exporting country will apply for the SPS certificate. Will connect to the issuing authority of this exporting country, and then they will go on a processing and inspection and issuance of the certificate. Once they satisfy the measure of the importing country, they get to sign an approved SPS certificate. So now we are in stage two. The usual workflow is paper-based. This paper is then transmitted to the importer, so from the exporter to the importer, number 3. And in stage 4, the importer will then submit the paper-based SPS certificate for quarantine clearance to the recipient authority of the importing country. They get through inspection, validation, and clearance of the import shipment. And then once it's satisfied, the goods are finally cleared. So it goes from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 steps in a business where paper is used. Now, when we move to paperless trade or paperless SPS certification, this is what's happening. Same workflow, but with a slight improvement. Using SPS electronic certification allows for a more efficient exchange of information between exporter and importer. The exporter still has to apply for the SPS certificate, but now what's happening now is that paper is not exchanged anymore, but electronic information is directly sent from the issuing authority to the recipient authority. So in ORAGE, in the middle, we experience a bilateral government-to-government exchange of the information, which allows to skip, if you want, the middle stage of 2, 3, 4 of the actual exchange of paper certificates. So this minimizes the risk of error and also expedite the transfer of information from exporter to importer. Once the importing authority receives the electronic information, the same process kicks in: validation, inspection, clearance of the imported shipment, and then finally the goods are cleared. In between, the only thing that happens is that traders from the exporting and importing country do not have to handle the paper certificate themselves. They get notified that the electronic certificate has been issued and sent to the to their counterparts. There are multiple benefits, known benefits of using SPS electronic certification. First of all, is that there is no more loss of paper, obviously. Some issues in terms of documentation or recording can be solved in minutes, whereas before he has to go back and forth on the paper certificate and make the correction. This also, when those are certified with electronic signatures, this also reduces the fraudulent certificates by being more expeditive with trade and also being able to record important information that are on the SPS certificate. Electronic certification can also improve the way countries handle risk assessment. Thanks to that, there is a better management of resources. This also can cut or lower the food waste due to the long clearance process. When clearance are expedited, this also makes the good move faster at the borders. And also, of course, it increases trade by cutting time and cost, etc., etc. So there are billions of benefits that are actually that makes electronic certification very attractive. And we knew that during COVID also the impossibility to have interaction between agents make electronic communication paramount to the trade during that period. So now I want to open a bit more what we do at the OECD in terms of digital transformation of agricultural trade and talk about the work we have conducted in the past and what we are doing right now. Our digital ag trade agenda at OECD kind of started around 2019 with the work on digital opportunity for sanitary and phytosanitary system. It's the report that is on the left-hand side of the slide that eventually got published in 2021. That's the groundwork that was done by my colleague in the TAD directorate regarding all the digital opportunities for the SPS system. And there was a specific focus on SPS electronic certification. What this report showed is that electronic certification can have a positive impact on trade value and also facilitate trade greatly when country managed to transition to that. As I said, that that study was published in 2021, and with all the process of clearance that we have to undergo at the OECD, it means that the study relied on data that are older than 2021. And so the report is based on data collected in 2019 or early 2020. So it's also important to have it in mind. Following up on that study that got a lot of interest from our delegates, there was a deep dive on electronic sanitary certificates. So a focus on plant and on plant product to look at the difference between certification for plant product and animal product, and try to understand what are the challenges in the animal sector for the implementation of electronic certificates. So that work got published last year in 2023. In parallel, another report also related to SPS system came out in 2023. And this one was called Sanitary and Phytosanitary Approval Procedure. So it's broader than SPS electronic certification. But what was interesting in this report is that it covered a lot the COVID period and the solution that countries implemented during that period to handle the bottlenecks and facilitate trade. So the approval procedure report got exposed to the exchange of electronic certificate, but with a bigger perspective to improve or streamline the approval procedures of SPS system. And today, I will talk more into details about a work in progress, so mentioned in red at the bottom of the slide, which is called Sanitary and Phytosanitary Electronic Certificates, Current Practices and Benefits. This work has started about a year ago, and we aim to declassify it in December this year, 2024. It's kind of revisiting the first study of 2021. I'm going to show you some motivation of doing that. The OECD conducted a survey in 2022 after COVID to understand what countries had implemented during that period to handle SPS approval procedures. And we got answer from 25 countries. So we conducted a survey. 25 countries participated to this survey. Among them, 16 were OECD members. We got feedbacks from different perspectives from veterinary, plant protection, and food safety agencies. And by collecting the experience of those countries, we were able to analyze 34 case studies to collect valuable real-world experience of what happened during that period. So it was to understand the most recent efforts to improve the control, inspection, and approval procedures at the borders. And what we got from this survey as a feedback is that about 18% of the respondents said that because of COVID, they started to accept electronic certificates. So that's quite a significant results in terms of specific actions. And so this started to highlight the importance of changing or transforming the SPS system to address issue like what we experienced during the COVID-19 pandemic. So let's focus more on this SPS. We thought that we should focus more on this SPS electronic certificate and understand what happened during the COVID-19 period and what would be the benefits in the future. So the motivation, as I said, is that SPS electronic certificate played an important role during the COVID pandemic. Here on the left-hand side of the slide, you see a diagram that shows the number of electronic certificate exchange for plant products, so we call them called the e-phytos, and that were exchanged through the IPPC hub between the early stage, the onset of the hub, December 2017, and the last data point correspond to September 2023. The red line you see, vertical, correspond actually to the end of the previous study that we did at OECD, which means that at that time, we started to cover the uptake, the beginning of the uptake of electronic certification, but we are missing a big chunk of the dynamics that happened afterwards. So that happened since the start of the pandemic. So how are we going to do that this time? We set different objectives. The project outline for this SPS electronic certification is the following. First, we want to take stock of the current use of SPS electronic certificate, basically understand what's going on the right-hand side of the charts. How many more countries are now exchanging electronic certificate compared to the previous study, what they do between plant or certificate, how many partners, etc. Having that information, we also aim to quantify the trade impact of using SPS electronic certificates. And then we want also to open up the discussion for further thinking and investigate the role of SPS certification in supporting some traceability requirement, for example. What we have at hand to conduct this agenda is the following. So we follow two processes in our methodology. The first one is that we base on our analysis on a survey, again, where we ask countries about their use of SPS electronic certificate. And also we reach out directly to countries to obtain, exchange their own perspective related to the benefits and challenges. And today, for me, it's also very important to be able to participate to this webinar with the private sector, is because hopefully we also want to integrate insights from the private sector and not just the public sector regarding SPS electronic certificate. All right. Taking stock of the exchange of SPS e-certificates by the use of a survey. So why do we need to have a survey out there related to SPS electronic certificates? There are some tools already available and provided by other international organizations, but they are not directly answering our needs. One of the most known of such a tool is the one provided by the UN called the Global Survey. Global Survey on Digital and Sustainable Trade Facilitation. It's a big survey that happens every other year on average. The last edition came up last summer, 2023. And the survey basically looked at different angles of digital and sustainable trade facilitation. And one of them covers SPS, covers agri-food, and SPS electronic certification. And there is one question in the survey that asks countries where do they stand in terms of the exchange with other countries. So just to visualize here, I put on the slide the results for mostly OECD countries. And what is nice about the survey, though, is that since it was conducted since 2017, that question, we can see the evolution. Where do we started and how are we now, say, 6 years after the first time it was asked. Just some symbols to visually directly see the evolution. A white circle means that countries have not implemented electronic certification at all. I mean, the exchange, not the production, but the exchange with other countries. One quarter of the pie would mean that it's still a pilot stage. So what does it mean, a pilot stage? Is maybe they do that with only one country or a few commodities. When it gets partially implemented, we go a step further, and fully implementation would be a dark cycle. What we noticed is that among the respondents, and again, I haven't put everyone, but this is quite a representative sample, none of them have fully implemented yet the SPS electronic certificate. So there might be a possibility to produce certificate electronically, but the step of the exchange with trading partner is not fully implemented yet. So we want to understand a bit more what's going on there and get a bit more of the detail. We want to basically look at the bilateral exchange, go deeper into this question of sending and receiving electronic certificates of countries. So now I'm presenting what we do. What's the tool we built to address this question? So we created a survey that we shared first with our delegates and then our broader networks, in which we ask very simple questions relative to the exchange of SPS electronic certificates. Those 4 questions basically just ask about which risk country a government is sending or receiving SPS e-cert. We also want to know some detail about the HS code. So the higher level, the better, but we also are constrained with aggregation. So we work kind of, our analysis is conducted at the 2-digit level. Very importantly, we want to know when this started and what are the official mechanisms. So meaning, are country using the IPPC hub for eFITO, or do they have their own private, not private, but own national system? So more details about explaining what's going on is welcome. And in terms of key results, we got the following. So the response turnout greatly improved since the first time the survey was conducted. So that survey is kind of the essence of the 2021 paper I mentioned first, so the one that was done pre-COVID, where we only got 11 answers, but it was already very informative to get a sense of the trade facilitation effect of using SPS electronic certificate. This time, so the study was conducted over 2023, and we are still accepting answer for country who wants to participate. We moved to 2026 countries, mostly due to the fact that more and more European countries participated to the survey. What do we observe from these 26 respondents is that 15 of them sent SPS e-cert, and almost pretty much everyone received them. So it seems to be easier to receive a certificate than sending one. We also observed that there is a steady increase in the use of SPS certificates and also a positive impact on trade. So I'm going to mention a little bit in the next few slides how we measure that. But there are some caveats around those usage of SPS certificate that we get from the survey, is that it seems to be a challenge with the user uptake and some resistance to change, because we notice that there is a discrepancy between what's possible or the potential connection or the potential exchange of SPS electronic certificate between countries and what's it's actually exchanged between countries. So we merge those information with trade data to look at how much what does it mean for trade value and trade volumes to now be able to exchange electronic certificates. And here in this chart, you see how much trade is potentially covered by the possibility to exchange SPS certificates. In 2018, at least for the plant sectors, I'm going to focus on that. So the blue bars, we started with 15% of the HS2 sectors being covered and bilateral relationship of country being covered with SPS electronic certificates, and now we move to 25%. So it's more and more products and also pairs of country are now enabling the use of electronic certificates. To visualize our survey results, I thought that would be a nice graph to show you, to look at the difference between receiving and sending SPS certificates, because those are really two different processes. As I said, receiving seems to be more adopted than sending. And also we see that it's again a result that we kind of expected based on the previous study, is that phyto certificates are largely more used than electronic certificate for sanitary products. Here you get basically the type of certificates and the receiving or sending countries and the number of partners they are doing that. Moving on to, I mentioned also that based on the survey and our connection with trade data, we analyzed that there is a positive impact on trade. Just quickly to explain how we do that, or we conduct this quantitative analysis, we use a tool that is massively used in ag trade or in international trade in general, is a gravity model. So we conduct some econometrics behind that, and we feed our econometrics with the survey results. The principle, it's really like the Newton gravity, where there is a model that is completely confirmed by the data that countries will tend to trade more if they are big and close to each other. And we can also incorporate some measurement of barriers or trade facilitation measures to the model to see, try to estimate what would be then trade, the normal trade between two countries. So in this diagram, you see that country is very large, and country A will tend to, obviously, because of demand and supply forces, will tend to trade more with the other partners. When there are big barriers to trade, so with this little symbol of black and white barrier, the arrow between country B and country C is very thin. So it's a model that can incorporate measurement of barrier, and then we estimate that trade is minimum between those countries. But on the other end, we also can integrate measures that facilitate trade, and these are symbolized with the two hands shaking at the bottom between country A and country C. And one of them is the use of SPS electronic certificate. We want to know how much the use of SPS electronic certificate can facilitate, can reinforce this handshaking between country A and country C. Just want to mention some preliminary results related to that analysis because they still need to be fine-tuned. We find that for vegetable product overall, because this is what works so far, it's when we aggregate the results. Unfortunately, I cannot show you today results for this specific disaggregated sectors, but at least we can make a distinction between plant and animal product. We see that overall, there is an immediate positive impact for both plants and animal products. And then even a year after, or if we could also estimate that for 2 years or 3 years, there are additional further positive impact on trade. So roughly, we range between 15 and, if we want to push that very far along over time, 30% increase in export value from the implementation of SPS electronic certificates. So that's going to be, once the analysis is fine-tuned, that's going to be a very important results of the report to show, to convince that the benefits that I claimed at the beginning for using SPS certificates are supported by the data. Nevertheless, I also mentioned some caveats that we noticed collecting our survey results. This is related to the gap between what we think could be implemented and what is actually used. In our survey response, some countries were able to provide us with the name of the countries they have a possibility to exchange electronic certificates, but also data on the specific exchange of SPS electronic certificates. Basically, the actual versus potential usage of electronic certificates. Not all countries are able to track that information, but the ones who were able were actually from the European Union. And I pull up this information from the European Commission to show you that even within the European Union, where we can think that things are slightly more organized than other country pairs, there is not a 100% coverage of the digitally signed certificates. Actually, overall, the number is probably too small here, but I can read it for you. The total number of documents that get digitally signed within the era of SPS certificate is only 36%. So it means that more than two-thirds, excuse me, are not using the digital option and are still conducting their SPS certification on paper base. And that's it's an interesting result by itself, and we need to understand, to hear from the private sector directly, why is it the case? There are some reasons, obvious reasons that are mentioned. One of them is that there is maybe a lack of trust or a lack of training for the stakeholders to use that, but that can be solved. But others are like, maybe these SPS certificates needs to be used for other purposes, other commercial purposes, and the electronic version are not accepted yet by other partners. So that's also work in progress, which means that implementation takes time, and full implementation will require a lot of efforts and investments from the public and private sectors. And this is what I want to talk about now, is that the full implementation of SPS electronic certification. So that's the final part of my presentation today, and where I hope to get interest from you, representative of the private sector, and just to confirm that this can contribute to the discussion and the narrative of SPS electronic certification. So I'm going to focus now on the use of electronically recorded SPS information. When you think about the implementation of SPS electronic certification, you can have some of representation with this arrow in 4 steps. At the beginning of the decision of implementing or transitioning to electronic certificate, partners and stakeholders need to engage into the first step 1, which means that which answer this question: how are we going to automatize the business process, meaning the SPS certification, to issue electronic certificates. There is some analysis of not every step should be digitalized. That's first thing. And so for that, there is a need to streamline the workflow, to make it more efficient already in order to transition to electronic certification. There is also a need to have supported legal framework to make sure that this is possible. So that's what could be in the groundwork of step one of the overall process for implementation. Then we move to the second step, where border agencies need to be able to talk to each other. So you cannot have one element of the business process that is digitalized without the cooperation of all the agents engaging at the border. So the need for strengthening this coordination is very important, and that can be sometimes a challenge for the implementation. Once this is done, you get to the technical part, kind of for the step 3, of understanding what would be the most efficient way to exchange the SPS certification. What would be the technical solution? So when we think about the plant product and how we exchange e-phyto for them, would it be to use the IPPC hub? So to have a multilateral approach, or still continue on the bilateral one with government-to-government approach? Would it be to use the hub or the national to connect it to the generic system, or to use national system? So the technicality here enter, and decisions are personal to the different governments to choose which one would be the most efficient. And then we also have to engage traders in the adventure. So what do we do to increase the user uptake? As I said before, we still observe that even though when the solution is there, we are not yet at the 1% use of the digital solution, but we're still remaining at 30% or something like that. So what does it take for the user to be convinced that they can trust the system and then take part of that? And finally, what I want to cover more into detail now for the end of this presentation is the 4th step, the use of electronically recording information. First of all, once you get such a rich amount of information related to SPS, you can have a feedback effect, that's the arrow at the bottom, to update your workflow, or to update the way you conduct risk assessment, to improve the safety, the resilience of your SPS system. So that's one thing. How do you use the data to improve your business process? And the second one, but there can be many other elements under this 4th step. The second one we can talk about is also the traceability requirement. Traceability is a tool for government to support safety and quality. So how does electronic SPS certification can serve this tool to make it better, actually? So how are we gonna approach that topic in the current project I'm talking about today is this way. We want to understand what's the role of electronic certification in improving traceability, but staying in the SPS context, not going further. So focusing basically on the last bullet point of this step 4. We want to understand the different perspectives. The first perspective is the public sector approach to traceability. In a food safety context, it means that government needs to identify uniquely some consignment of food and be able to trace the flow forward and backwards. That's the requirement. And they also need to create and maintain some accurate traceability record in the event that there is a need for a recall. So based on the public approach, we can also move to the second approach that is more interesting for you, is the interaction between public and private sectors. And we want to understand what motivates private sectors to engage into this traceability. We're sure that private sectors, it's also motivated by food safety and quality as equal as the public one. But is there any other commercial motive to that? And finally, because we are talking about cross-border international trade, we also want to understand how the public, the different public sectors of different countries interact with each other in a way to improve the cooperation along the supply chain. So right now, we are preparing what we call a readiness assessment tool for the use of electronically recorded information. So what does it mean? We want to know, in a similar way as with the data, we can measure how far we are with full implementation or full usage. We also want to provide the countries with some tool or checklist to see how ready they are to use the data for food safety purposes or improvement of risk assessment and risk management at the border. So we have some ideas of how this tool would look like for the public sector perspective. So we have the three chunks: public, private, and public, as I mentioned in the slide before. And for instance, I provide here you with some questions, some example of questions that will be integrated to this readiness assessment tool to cover the following topic. So those questions that I present here are related to the data handling requirements. They could be like, first question, do you store the information obtained from SBS certificates? And what information is stored? How long is it retained? Where is the information retained? Is the information publicly available? For instance, in the US, those data on food recall are publicly available. Who has access to the data? How many agencies can access the data? Is there a cooperation with the custom or within the food safety? Do they talk with other agencies? Also, does the country have an internal training on data management and usage? So is it always the same team in terms of human resource? How do you make sure that there is a continuum capacity of using this data in the most efficient way? And again, we also have in mind of looking at some consideration of going further than SPS context. Is there room for expanding the scope of this data collected for, say, social or environmental sustainability objectives? So that's, we are right now discussing that with our counterparts and with our contact with in the countries to elaborate more on the list of what would be the most relevant question for that public sector perspective. For the private sectors, it's a bit more tricky, and that's why it's really important for me to be discussing that with you today. We also want to come up with some similar question, but to have a focus on how does this interact with the public sector. And one question we have in mind, for instance, is the following. Is the information retained for your private sector's traceability requirement more or less or equally stringent as what is required by governments, for instance? So we can also tackle here the issue that sometimes there can be a feeling that government ask for more and more non-necessary information, and this also can be stringent on the way business is conducted for the private sector. And finally, for the last part on cross-border public-public interaction, we will tackle questions such as the existence of an international agreement or to cooperate basically on data exchange, and also look at how transit is handled in this case. So my last slide is the following. For us, the next steps are here. We want to inform our analysis with private sector inputs. So today I would be very eager to hear what are the principles basically driving traceability in the seed sectors. To understand what's the business process for cross-border trade in seed sectors. Would there be any interest in sharing good practice related to traceability, or test this readiness assessment tool once it's done? So I know we only have 15 minutes for that next steps, but I hope with this presentation and the recording, you can always find a way to reach out again. And if you want to connect here, I'm putting my information contact on this final slide. Also a way to thank you everyone for the attention to this presentation. And now I'm very happy to listen to your comments and happy to answer them if I can.
Thank you so much, Edith. That was fantastic. You really went very much into the details and why the part of the private sector is so important to be able to answer and to be able to understand some of the points that you raised. I think that the fact of the traceability, some of the questions that our members would be able to answer, and I hope some of them would feel brave enough to raise their hand here on this event. Happy to see who would like to ask a question. Please raise your hand. I will be able to monitor. So I have some questions for you, Edith. It's some of the things that I have already thought, but also when you were presenting, there is one particular slide where you show that there is much more countries receiving instead of sending. Why do you believe this is happening? Because I would say if you're doing trade, is the market access, you want to not so much to receive, but you wanted to send. This is when you're selling your products, this is when you're trying to make the movement. Why do you believe that there is this discrepancy between how much more are being received than in relation to sending?
I believe it's because this is where the legal frameworks can kick in. There is in the process of transforming the exchange of SPS certificates, there is an important part of building or making sure that the legal framework is equipped to handle this data in a digital formats. And one of them is the enforcement of recognition of electronic signatures. And that, I know for the EU at least, that's a big requirement or can be basically a number one barrier or stage to reach in order to be able to conduct the different process. So until countries agreed with what is recognized as being a legitimate electronic information, basically nothing forward. So it's more easy to accept than just certify that something it's conform or will have the same importance of what's on the paper certificates.
So do you think that the digitalization, so evolution, different tools are coming, but the regulations are not keeping up with the level of the new innovations that are coming?
I want to say it's also something that it's very like almost all the time integrated from the beginning, but it's also based on the objective of the different countries. This can be done more quickly or not, and that's what I want to say.
Do you think that when we evolve even more with AI now kicking in, and it will be used not just the usual ones that we use every day, you see there is a new tool, and I do believe that AI is going to be a big thing going forward, not just for the chat GPT, but I'm talking about really revolutionize and speeding the process across the agri-food value chain. Do you think that we're still going to be lagging behind because of old regulations, or because there is still that you mentioned about the lack of trust? You mentioned that in the European Union, I think you said 2/3 is still not using electronic tools. So do you believe that even with all this evolution coming, we're still going to be lagging behind? There's still going to be this difficulty of implementation because we have trust issues and also because we have the legislations taking so long to be able to be updated?
With only every type of information, that is true that from the public perspective, there is always a lag behind compared to the private sector, where private sector would move always very fast. And we see this example with generative AI that gets kind of popularized with ChatGPT. So, but it already existed. Like it's not that it came up only like a few years ago now that the whole public is starting to use it. But the fact that there is now this ChatGPT that's expose the technology to a broader public makes it very interesting. And now we are where we're going to have most of the benefits it's into the usage of that technology. So we try now to implement, we are starting now to implement them for concrete things. For like for the private sector to get a full hold of the technology. And it is true that we are not there yet with some regulation or at least principle on to use AI and what would it mean for the intellectual property or proprietary usage of the data. With AI, we are moving to a ground where, say, the right to be forgotten that we now have with GDPR will be even more complicated. And so until we get, and obviously, what would be the most efficient way is to decide that at the multilateral level, that rather than again move into a billion universe of standards where every country has their own regulation, and then it gets very hard to harmonize. Having said that, I think AI can also be used to tackle some of the challenges that electronic certificates have in their implementation. So say in the challenges related to the use of electronic certificates, there are some notion of saying like, are they well equipped to do different objectives, like such as transit, or and maybe we can use AI to look at the different SPS measure, country SPS measure, and look at what would be the common point. So AI should not be only thought about something that where we will lag behind, but it can also be used to push further and faster, improve our already existing electronic certification. And
so it's an active tool.
Yeah.
I agree with you. I think that all these tools that are being developed, that they really should be used more actively and actually to be able to improve the process, to increase trust, to increase traceability, but also to increase security. That was one of the things that when all these e-certs and now e-vets and e-FITO came, it was for the security, to improve the movement, to make sure that there is the security. And I trust as well that all the new tools that will come, that will be exactly that what is aiming for. I have one last question for you, Edith, before we close this webinar. And like I said, the recording will be available for all the ISF members, but also will be available at the ISF YouTube channel, World Seed, and that will be shared across all our different networks. What I would like to know is that what is the OECD agenda related to our digitalization agriculture trade? So a part of the work that you do, what else more further are we looking for? Because I believe this work you're doing now is already a follow-up from the 2021 work that you've done. So what is on the agenda now in the OECD on this particular topic going forward?
Thank you. Very happy also to promote that we're going to continue in this field of digitalization of ag trade. One focus, it seems that at least from our counterparts other international organizations, there is some value added of our work when you think about codex, and so the one that we are capable of doing is this: by conducting this survey, understanding the standards, we can also share some information that is not necessarily directly connected. So we are discussing of implementing again our methodology to address questions such as food fraud, as you said, and also moving a bit further with the sustainability of ag trade. In-house at OECD, on a broader perspective, so this is more my colleagues with the trade teams, they are looking at what would it take to have a fully paperless trade. And so SPS would be a component of that. And they have ongoing project on looking at how paperless trade works today and how the lesson learned from today can be implemented for future paperless trade. And so there they have some thinking around what would it take to have a fully integrated system where it's not just one agency that participates to that, but also a cooperation with everything where things are integrated. It's not just different certificates that are working electronically separately, but this can get integrated in a single window format. So consideration, like broader picture, where in a sense SPS would be an application of it.
That's fantastic. I can see we're going to still be talking and working together for many months together. That's really, really good. I would like to say on behalf of the International Seed Federation, of course, the international seed sector, Edith, for your fantastic presentation today. I would like to say thank you so much for the participants who are here. And I wish you success on this. And as you know, we will be working together with you. We will be reaching out to our members, but also we will be working to be able to have some of the questions that you have answered on behalf of the private sector. I would like to say thank you so much for the presentation today. It was absolutely fabulous. Thank you, everybody, for watching here with us. And the recording will be available, as I said already, on the ICF YouTube channel, the channel World Seed, and also I'll be making available through the network on our own ICF members area. But thank you so much to everybody now. And I would like to wish you all a wonderful afternoon or morning or evening, whatever you are. And then we'll catch up very soon. Thank you so much. Take care, everybody. Until the next time. Bye-bye.
Thank you.